Welcome, everybody, to today's P2P learning session. We are joined by Dan Singjoy of Optimystics. Super excited for today's session. Going to be diving into respect games, progressive decentralization for purpose-driven DAOs. Dan, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ben. And thanks so much to everyone in the V DAO community. Thrilled to be here. And it's nice to meet you, Eric and Joshua as well. And yeah, so I'm Dan Singjoy, as Ben mentioned, and I've been following the V DAO community for just over a year now, since around the time we were at launch. I had the pleasure to meet Chris at ETH Denver last year, and then I went to the V DAO event that was hosted in ETH Denver this year, and met up with Chris again, met up with several community members, and have been really enjoying your progress. And I've been working in decentralized governance and on-chain social games for the past 4 years now, or 5 years now, and I have a presentation ready to share about the Respect game, which is an on-chain social game that helps communities collaborate and cooperate and govern to achieve shared goals. And I think it really aligns with what VDAO is doing. We had a great discussion about it, Ben. So I really appreciate you inviting me, and shout out to Chris too. So I'm really happy to be here. And if you'd like, I can jump into a presentation now that gives an overview of the respect game and these concepts of fractal democracy or fractal governance and so forth, and how it can help progressive decentralization for purpose-driven DAOs and potentially help out VDAO as well. Also happy to go in any other direction too if you have any other questions or comments or things you think I should focus on throughout it. So what do you think, Ben? Should I jump into a presentation or any other way to go ahead? Okay. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Well, yeah, feel free along the way. I watched some of the past P2P sessions on the YouTube channel. I've been diving into a lot of the content on the VDAO channel and really enjoying it. And I watched, and the past couple ones, people gave like some pretty detailed presentations. So I prepared a pretty detailed presentation, but also happy to, have it very interactive and so forth. And so I suppose feel free to um, just unmute and share some thoughts, or raise your hand, or put it in a message chat, or I suppose whatever Ben and the VDAO community thinks is best. And without further ado, I suppose we'll take one quick sip of water and share the presentation for Respect Games and Progressive Decentralization for Purpose-Driven DAOs. So yeah, once again, I'm Dan Singjoy, and I'm really excited to be here. I really love what VDAO is doing. I have an agenda that I put together, and I put this presentation together fairly quickly. But I think that it'll provide like a really helpful overview of the Respect game. So first, I'll go into a bit of the origins and the evolution of the Respect game. And then I'll explain more details about what is the Respect game and core benefits and the applications of it, the tools and technical infrastructure that communities can use, that communities do use right now to play the Respect game and to make decisions with respect and to organize their community. And then we'll dive deeper into progressive decentralization while maintaining purpose and how the Respect game can help with that. And specifically some thoughts about how the Respect game can help VDAO if you all would like to try playing the Respect game sometime, we could even play a little game here while we're here, or we could also do another session too. But we'd be very happy to show it off, and we could try playing, and I think it'd be a lot of fun. And that'd be a cool way to experience it as well. And then I can share some next steps and resources and stuff like that that we could take, or for anybody who wants to look into more details as we proceed or after the event and so forth. Once again, I want to say thanks. I pulled up a picture of this picture, that this tweet from VDAO hosted this event. That's actually me in the corner right there, or in the middle. I don't know if you can see my mouse right now, but I'm there with my friends Will and Abraham and Rosemary, who just joined the call actually. And we had a really great time there. And I met all of them actually through the Respect game and through Fractals. Yeah, I'm really excited to share it with you. And I see Rosemary here too. So I collaborate closely with Rosemary on the Respect game. So yeah, I'm really inspired by VDAO's mission to incubate regenerative network states, or I suppose Fifth World is incubating VDAO as a DAO, and then generally VDAO is working to incubate regenerative network states and solutions for regenerative DAOs and so forth, and excited to explore governance tools and community engagement tools that can support your purpose. And so, yeah, I'll first start by saying a bit about myself, just a bit more about my personal journey, and then we'll get into philosophical foundations of fractal democracy and community experiments and how this led to the Respect game over time. And this will be kind of the first chapter. So first, I have a background in musicians and creative in music. I'm a musician and creative arts and community building. And for a long time, I did a lot of live streams, like we're live streaming now, making music. And I was really inspired by how we could help like creators collaborate better. And I realized a lot of problems with social media, with Web 2, and all sorts of governance problems throughout the world. And about 4 years ago, or a little bit over 4 years ago, I got really inspired by democratic coordination systems with this process called fractal democracy, which has evolved into the respect game. So I've spent most of my time over these years working to make governance engaging, fair, and accessible, while still playing some music here and there. And you can find more details about me at dansingjoy.com. The thing that really got me into governance more than ever was this book called More Equal Animals. It was written by Daniel Larimer, who's a visionary innovator in the blockchain space. He's created several leading protocols and um, communities, including EOS, Hive, and Steam, and BitShares. It was the first decentralized exchange, BitShares, and the first decentralized social media platforms. And so I got really inspired by his work, seeing about how blockchain could help social media, help improve it with Steam and Hive. These were social media platforms where you could earn money by making posts, and it was very interesting. And then I followed his work a lot, and he wrote this book in 2021 called More Equal Animals: A Subtle Art of True Democracy that identified key problems with traditional democratic systems throughout society, how power gets centralized, organizations grow, and a lot of people don't participate because there's like rational ignorance and voter apathy. And why would people do all this research on how governance is going to run like a national government if there's 100 million people voting, and how much does your vote count for, and how do small groups coordinate and maintain independence, and all this stuff. It's really a fascinating book. Morglands.com, you can learn more about it. And he proposed a fractal structure as a solution to democratic scaling. And this was really fascinating for me and a community of hundreds of innovators who are in the EOS community. So this is more about Dan Larimer. People might have heard of EOS as well as BitShares and Hive, but these combined had over a $20 billion valuation. They're some of the biggest blockchain platforms of their time. And so a bunch of people who were in the EOS community at the time got really excited about this, and we started a community called Eden on EOS, or it was kind of like Dan Larimer and his team kind of came up with the idea, and then the community rallied around it. And this was a community working with this fractal democracy process to maximize power and independence by having this fractal democracy process. And the basic way it worked was that like you'd have these breakout rooms, you'd all gather in like this big group basically of hundreds of people, or thousands of people or millions of people potentially. And then these usually happen on Zoom calls, like kind of like we're on right now. And then people would go into breakout rooms and they would elect a leader from these breakout rooms to like basically serve as their representative and their delegate. And this was conceived as a way, rather than having, a giant election with hundreds or thousands or millions of people voting for two candidates, you can have a bunch of people form this fractal structure, and you can repeat this on a recurring basis and so forth. And this is what the respect game had evolved from. So the respect game is similar to this, but it has some really great improvements that I'll get into. But this is kind of like the basics, where you can either meet up in an in-person event, which I know V DAO does a lot of, or a Zoom call like this, and then separate into these Zoom calls, or separate in these breakout rooms rather, and then each have like maybe a half hour, an hour, or however the group wants to decide to determine who wants to lead the group. And this is an idea that this can improve governance. This was back from 2021. This website's a bit old, but basically we did this. I have an article here which kind of explains how this worked from its inception in 2021. There was a huge amount of videos which I curated. I started a YouTube channel called Eden Creators that basically is like devoted towards exploring and like documenting these processes, where we've recorded hundreds and hundreds of videos and thousands of hours of videos where we're testing these processes. There was elections that had hundreds of people joining these these events. Actually, in this article, you could see a little bit like we gathered, and there'd be hundreds of people gathering for this event, and like we'd all go into the breakout rooms, and it was really exciting. And there's actually $1.5 million approximately that was raised by this community that was distributed at this time too, an application that was developed, and all sorts of videos. And I've done my best to curate and document this on the YouTube channel, as well as several other resources I have. And then after that, this is where the respecting comes in. After we did that for several different elections, and about a year later, we learned from this community, which was called Eden, which had this fractal breakout structure. Um, but we learned a lot from it. And Dan Larimer and his team, they created something called Fractally, which was they created a white paper and they posed this as the framework for the next generation of DAOs. This was written in 2022, and they wrote this comprehensive white paper that shows how you could use this fractal process to make more sustainable public goods funding and introduce the concept of peer evaluation for recognizing contributions and created a blueprint for democratic resource allocation and started like basically created the core consensus mechanism of what we now call the respect game. And so you can go to fractally.com to learn more about this. There's a keynote here and there's a white paper. The white paper is currently down, but I have access to the white paper on the Optimistic site. And so you can watch Dan Larimer introduce it here, as well as explore some blog articles and find the More Equal Animals book about more about what fractally is and so forth. And this really, really inspired me even more so than the original because I saw how this is an improvement to the original fractal democracy concept. And this is, I got super inspired here. Shortly after the release of this white paper, there was a community that was formed like a week afterwards. We just started like kind of gradually meeting around this white paper and the ideas in it, in something called Genesis Fractal, where we had about a year long or an 8 month long experiment where about 30 people joined each week, did these breakout rooms and did the process. I should maybe jump ahead too a little bit too and just explain a bit about what the respect game is too. So maybe I'll go back to the history, but basically the respect game, it's a foundation for democratic coordination. It's an on-chain social game and it's meant to be fun and also engaging, help people better cooperate. And basically people go into these breakout rooms like I explained before, but rather than just electing one leader or one delegate who makes decisions for the group or one representative, people are ranking each other's contributions towards some kind of common cause. So, and it could be like it's a very flexible game, so it could just be played just totally for fun. Like for example, you could have a game where people are kind of competing to share the funniest jokes, and maybe each person has a minute to share their jokes, or maybe doing their best dances or sharing what they're grateful for. It could be something fun and silly like that. But and that could be really fun and exciting. But the way that we've mostly played it is to measure contributions towards a common goal. And this is a way to evaluate how helpful people are, how much people are helping a certain community or common goal, as well as form the foundations of this democratic governance structure. Because when people collaboratively rank each other's contributions and play the respect game with our apps and using the consensus mechanism, it naturally distributes reputation tokens, non-transferable, soul-bound reputation tokens that form the infrastructure for this highly decentralized, highly democratic governance system. And it also forms like the natural opportunities for community building, for people to get to know each other, for people to learn about what they're doing. So yeah, I have some notes here on the screen that I think I probably covered most of this, but we played this game many hundreds of times. I founded a couple communities called Optimism Fractal and Eden Fractal, where it's focused around the respect game, and we play the respect game every week. And several other communities have since implemented the respect game. We've been building software for the respect game, and that's what my team, the Optimistics, is focused on doing: helping communities play the respect game, enjoy the respect game, building better software, organizing these events where people can learn about it, and helping out different communities with the respect game to improve their community engagement, improve their governance, and so forth. The way it works, like basically, I kind of explained it, but people randomly go into, or not randomly, but people all come together in a group. It can be played with as little as 3 people, but if you have thousands of people, it could also be played with thousands of people too. And basically, once you start the meeting, maybe there'll be a bit of an introduction, but then after that, people will go into randomized groups of up to 6 people each. And then each person will generally take turns to present what they've done to contribute to a common cause. Usually we do this for about 4 or 5 minutes. All these things can be flexible. We found that time amount works pretty well. People will generally introduce themselves to and share what they've done to help the common cause. So like, for example, you can see the picture right here. This is a picture we have from Optimism Fractal, which is a community dedicated to helping optimism, basically, the optimism superchain, large L2 network built on Ethereum. And so we host these bi-weekly events for Optimism Fractal where everybody can play the respect game. Everybody's welcome to join, and people share what they did to contribute to optimism. They shared if they built an app on optimism, or Base is part of optimism too, and Unichain and so forth, if they built an app there, or if they made a podcast about optimism, or if they invited friends, or if they just did research, whatever they did to like help contribute to Optimism Collective and the superchain. And then the group would collaboratively rank each other's contributions. This could also be played, of course, like in the context of V DAO. Say, for example, maybe if the V DAO community wants to play this, then it might be what you do to contribute to V DAO over the past week or over the past 2 weeks. It's usually played on a weekly basis or bi-weekly or something like that on a recurring basis. So you get lots of opportunities for people to share what they did and report on their progress. Maybe people would share what they did to help regenerative network states and so forth. I don't know. The community can basically decide however they want to play it. But then after the community decides how they want to play it, then each person will just share what they did to contribute to that common cause, and then they can discuss that. And then the key aspect of the game in a way is like basically they have to work to reach consensus on the relative impact of their contributions. So they have to reach consensus on who helped achieve that goal the most. And in order for anybody to receive respect, and respect is the soulbound token, it's the reputation token that serves as the basis of the governance system, and it's also a recognition token to say, hey, this person has earned the respect of the community, basically, and they have done some contributions that the community found helpful or valuable, and so we're awarding them with respect token to show that we appreciate what they did and to give them some power that could potentially be used in governance decisions and so forth in the future with this reputation-based system. And so the way it works is you need to reach consensus. And the way we usually play is you need to reach two-thirds consensus in order to you need to reach two-thirds consensus on the relative impact of everybody's contributions during that breakout room in order for everybody to receive respect. So everybody has incentive to reach consensus, and basically they need to determine, okay, who helped the community the most this week? And if they can agree between two-thirds of those six people who helped the community the most this week, then after that, then they decide, okay, well, who helped the community the second most this week? And then if they can agree between four out of six of them who helped the second most, then they'll go on to who helped the third most and the fourth most and the fifth most and so forth. And for each time they can have discussions, they say maybe this person helped more, maybe this person helped more, this is why, and so forth. But by the end of the game, basically, they have to reach consensus on the ordering of who helped the most that week. And then if they do, then everybody will receive the respect token. And the respect token is distributed in a Fibonacci ratio as well. So basically, there's incentive where, yes, I'll go this with Ben, where basically people who get higher levels or get higher ranks from their fellow community members, they receive more respect token. And for each higher level, you get about 60% more respect. That's about what their Fibonacci um, allocation determines. So there's a lot of incentive to contribute more, to help the community more, and keep coming back to the community events. This can also be played outside of community events in an asynchronous way too, but it's usually played in community events, how we've done it so far. So there's incentive to keep playing the game, keep helping the community, keep sharing what you did, keep helping the community reach consensus so you can earn more respect for what you've done and help the community succeed more. And we have a detailed article about this on optimistics.io is the website where we curate a lot of this information. So there's an article here about the respect game that shows how it works and why you could play it and who can benefit from it. It can be played by anybody, like DAOs or businesses or companies. Usually played in like online communities right now, like DAOs. But it's very flexible, and it also has an overview of the benefits, which I'll go over in more details too. But if anyone wants to check it out and review the rules and so forth, then encourage you to go there. So, but maybe I'll jump back a little bit and feel free once again if anybody has any questions. I'm happy to hear and happy to make it interactive and so forth, and try to provide as much valuable information for everybody. But maybe I'll go back a little bit into just the broader history a little bit, just so we could see just I suppose continue that thought. So I was saying how this kind of mechanism was defined in Fractally, and the Fractal white paper had a lot more ideas too about how this can be integrated with social media and all sorts of stuff like that. And I encourage people to check out the resources to learn more. And yeah, this system basically, because we're going into these breakout rooms during the respect game, that's why it's called fractal democracy and fractal governance. It's kind of like how a plant in nature branches off into all these different, or a tree branches off into all these different branches, and then smaller branches, and then leaves, and so forth. And even the leaves have this fractal structure. And it's kind of like that, where rather than trying to make decisions like all at once with everybody just like, speaking over each other, something like that, you're breaking these decisions into smaller groups where people can have intimate conversations and doing it over and over again, where people can earn respect in this credibly neutral system. So it's learning from nature and it's using this local wisdom in each group to inform these global decisions and maintaining and fostering these human connections while allowing this growth. And it's also a way to make it like truly democratic and truly decentralized. And it's a vision that was expressed in the Morgul Animals that we've been working towards to implement this throughout society so that small communities, large DAOs, large governments, and so forth can all benefit from fractal democracy and improved governance throughout society. There's a detailed article on the optimistic side about fractal democracy and the natural evolution of governance, where I've curated a lot of information about this, as well as the benefits and so forth. And then for each of these, there's like I kind of went through some of the history, but there's a lot of links here in case people want to dive deeper into these links about things that people have made, like videos and articles about fractal democracy and early implementations and so forth. That's all curated there. And also the Eden Fractal community, I have an article more about fractal decision-making processes. Sometimes we call it fractal governance. We call it by different names. And then, yeah, so since we have, since More Glanville was written and the first Eden on EOS community, which was called, we've had dozens of communities experimenting with the respect game and related fractal governance processes. In 2022, I founded a Eden Fractal community along with a bunch of people who were excited about this and the original Eden community and fractal communities. And we've been hosting events since then. We've hosted about 120 events, and we're just about to enter our third year in Eden Fractal. And then in late 2023, I collaborated with Eden Fractal community members, and we started a team called Optimystics, and we started a community called Optimism Fractal, which I briefly introduced before, where we're playing the respect game on optimism. And I suppose this year, or no, last year, a community member named Zal, he implemented the respect game into the Zao Fractal, which is a community of musicians who are playing the respect game, who doing so for almost a year now, each week, and really enjoying it and providing a lot of great feedback. And yeah, there's several other communities who are implementing it or have experimented with different ways. And we've been working to support this process basically. This is the Eden Fractal at edenfractal.com. It's dedicated to optimizing collective decision making through collaborative research development, education, gamification, community engagement, basically working to, at each of these events, uh, we play the respect game where we have a lot in the past and we have a vision and mission to basically help all communities have the tools and methods to make the best possible decision making with the respect game related tools. And so we're working to achieve that mission to implement these fractal decision making processes throughout society. And there's more details here. Everybody's welcome to join these events on Thursdays at 17 UTC. And on alternate weeks, we have the Optimism Fractal event, which is Optimism Fractal's community dedicated to fostering collaboration, awarding public goods creation, and optimizing governance on the superchain. And this is where we play the respect game and with each of these we make videos too. So well, and we're working to support the builders. A lot of the builders of these tools and people who are experimenting with these tools join the events too. So um, I'll go more into the tools in a little bit, but for example, you can also, in addition to joining the events, everybody's welcome to join. You can also watch the videos, and we publish like actually Rosemary on the call makes amazing artwork for these, and we put show notes together and stuff like that, and produce kind of like a game show basically. So it helps promote people who are working and building stuff in optimism or in general. I think it's a great kind of like collaborative game show format. So if people want, you can check out the YouTube channel as well as check out the show notes and so forth to learn more about what people are doing and see the game in action in addition to how we could play it. So we try to document it well so people can learn more about the respect game. And then, yeah, this is the Optimistics team where we've been building the tools and so forth and curating and building these communities and related things. If you go into the top right section for tools, and you can see the tools that we have to play the respect game, where you can implement this in your community and how that can and how that can be played and the benefits and so forth. We have lots of articles and documentation about that I'll get into in a little bit. Most of it being open source. Yeah, I suppose I'll go into the second chapter, and I've been speaking for a while, so maybe I'll speed up a bit, but I wanted to get some of those foundations in there, and hopefully that's been helpful for you, and hopefully everybody's enjoying it and they're excited about the respect game so far and curious. And I appreciate everybody's attention very much. Thanks for the thumbs up, Joshua, and thanks for the heart, Rosemary, and thanks everybody for the support. Um, so yeah, so we went over the basic process and we went over the respect token a bit. So, and I think we went over these things, the implementation options, applications, use cases to a good example. Maybe I'll go through these slides and then we'll see if there's anything else that we didn't really touch upon. And if not, then we can move on to the next section. Respect tokens, they're soulbound ERC1155 tokens. So they're also like a beautiful kind of commemorative NFT that people get by joining the event as well. That can be designed as the community wants. And these are on chain, so they can be composed with other systems. And these are automatically sent out with our software after people play the respect games. Then they receive respect tokens in proportion to the rank that they received and so forth. And we have all sorts of governance infrastructure for making decisions and allocating resources with them. We have an article as well about the respect tokens, the heart of growing communities, where it shows the benefits and how it works and how it can be used and so forth. So all these, I try to document them as well as we can, along with several great developers and contributors in our community. I mentioned how these can be played in person or online. They can be played weekly, monthly, even more often if people want. And you could focus on different ways, like to a mission or a theme topic and so forth. It's very flexible. People can decide how they want to play. For example, we've also played like determining goals or determining a vision or a mission. We've experimented with lots of different ways you could play it as well, or priorities. And it can be really integrated into existing community rhythms, into existing community events, and like very complementary for current processes of communities and how communities like to operate. And then, yeah, I went over a bit about how it can be beneficial for many different types of people and different communities. We really think that this could be helpful for all communities and organizations. And especially now, a lot of the past 4 years have been about like building this infrastructure basically. And now we have a much better infrastructure than we had before with these applications and much better education. And we learned how to brand it with the respect game because we were trying to figure out how to convey fractal democracy. Like how do people start playing? And we figured as a game with the respect game, it makes a lot of sense. So now we're at a point where we're really ready to start scaling this up and help more people enjoy the benefits of the respect game. I see, it looks like Ben asked that or said that he's curious what led you to decide on using the Fibonacci scoring system. So thanks for the question, Ben. And that was totally from Dan Larimer, basically. I didn't. After Dan Larimer came up with the Eden community, I was thinking of ways to improve it, but then he came out with this fractally, and I was like, "Oh, that's perfect." He did it basically. That's actually if I go to inspirations, there's a article here that actually has the link to the white paper, and this white paper here, it's like 55 pages of the fractally white paper, which shows like in detail about how this could work and how we play the spec game is a little bit different than this now, but it has a lot of common elements, and we take a lot of inspiration from it as we learn to still build some of these elements out and stuff. And basically, he starts by explaining what is a DAO and how respect game and fractal democracy enable true DAOs and what is respect exactly. And then, yeah, somewhere in this, maybe in earning respect, he basically just like explained the algorithm basically for it. Yeah, he talked about the respect distribution here with the contribution rank and so forth and the distribution. And then in the video that he created as well, he compared it to, like how nature, I think I showed the picture, but nature follows Fibonacci algorithm in a lot of ways. You look at plants, like maybe look at Joshua's background closely and you'd see Fibonacci sequences there. Yeah, that was basically the idea. And once he came out with that in Fractally, I was like, yes, that's great. That's excellent. That's a great way to do it. So special thanks and huge thanks to Dan Larimer and all the other pioneers who have helped come up with these processes, as well as I should also thank too, like there's amazing builders in the Optimistics team who I collaborate with and people who join the events who have contributed a lot to further developing the tools and taking it to the next step. So there's a lot of people to thank for, and I'm really appreciative for everybody who's contributed to this because it's come together in a lot of ways from a lot of people contributing to it over the years. So anyway, I think that hopefully that answered your question well, Ben. Happy to answer in more detail or anything like that. Okay, cool. And so we're in core benefits. And so I mentioned some of these already, but like I guess some core benefits we could identify are community engagement, contribution evaluation, democratic coordination, capital allocation. You could also add more to it too, like it's also a civil resistance mechanism because people go into these intimate calls and they can, measure if they're human and build up their reputation and build up their identity on chain. I know V DAO is building VPass and it's really exciting. I've been looking into it. And thanks, Rosemary, for sharing the Fractally white paper link there. Encourage people to check it out. Yeah, so there's also all those other benefits, but here I focus on four: community engagement, contribution, evaluation, democratic coordination, capital allocation. And I think I probably touched on a lot of these, how it creates regular touch points for authentic connection and transforms governance from like a chore that's boring into something that's engaging because people are actively participating in governance in each event without even really trying. They're just playing the game. And it also makes it simple too, because it's not like really making these huge evaluations of like, what did people contribute over the past year? It's not like somebody has to make like an application or something like that and like review some long paper. It's kind of like you just meet every week, you meet different people and you make fairly simple decisions. Sometimes it's difficult to decide who helped more, but it's like it breaks it down to simple binary decisions. Did this person help more? Or this person help more? This person help more? That person more? And it's also for fun. And it's like even if somebody gets a lower rank one week, then they can get a higher rank the next week, and the community usually remembers that. So it's a great community building experience that I've met a lot of like really amazing people and great friends and build amazing relationships through it as have others, and it fosters collaboration and brings together builders in different ways. It's a great way to onboard people, especially people who aren't familiar with Web3, because it's just like a very simple social game kind of, and it makes contribution visible so people have a place to share what they contributed. And at the same time, it provides this credibly neutral way to evaluate these contributions and this transparent verifiable record on chain of the value contribution, of the value creation. And Yeah, builds accountability. People are inspired to keep coming back and share more, and it aligns individual incentives with community goals because the community can set whatever how they want to play, and then people get more respect based on that. Democratic coordination, I mentioned. I think that fractal democracy is really necessary to enable large scale governance, like really throughout society, and also for small scale communities too. I think it's also like profoundly hopeful the way that these systems work. So I went over a lot of this, but basically, once people have that reputation, we have these systems for forming councils or making kind of liquid democracy where people can vote with their respect tokens. So people who have more respect basically have more power within the governance system. Avoid plutocracy and enable true democracy and prevent capture and scale from small groups to local communities. And also, I have another section too. I know that the title was about um, progressive decentralization for DAOs, and this is all included here. I've kind of been providing some of the basics, and I'm going to go into more of that in a little bit. But yeah, like basically throughout all this, it allows the community to democratically coordinate while adhering to this purpose and while fostering this purpose and while strengthening their purpose and further thinking of ways to contribute to their purpose. And then capital allocation too. So it's a way to distribute resources. I mentioned we had that first test of $1.5 million approximately. And since then, we've been like basically rigorously designing how this can be used to fund public goods throughout society. There's a big lack of public goods funding throughout society, and this is a way to do this in a transparent way that makes it fair and fast and fun and really funds the public goods that we depend on. I actually got approved for a mission, a research mission, a grant basically from the Optimism Collective to do research into democratic fund distribution last year. And for the past 7 months or so, I've been making these deliverables, which explains how it could be used for capital allocation. So there's a detailed research document that we've been going over. We've also been producing videos about this too, about how it can be helpful for fund allocation and so forth. And so happy to go into more details about that. And Rosemary shared some videos where we produced videos about this and so forth. And then we also have how the governance processes integrated to that, so it can allocate resources at scale using these processes. People are essentially voting with the respect tokens in different ways. So people who have more respect can vote more. And then, yeah, so as before I get into oh, I see Eric actually shared a chat there. Sorry, Eric, I missed that. That was a few minutes ago. Eric asked, have you looked into the Ethereum attestation service? Wouldn't that make a better system to reward participants rather than a soul-bound NFT for every meeting? Thanks for the question, Eric. That's a great question. So yes, I have looked into the Ethereum attestation quite a lot. And actually, I was just talking with a couple of developers in the community who I'm working with on a project, and I was suggesting that we integrate with the Ethereum attestation service because currently, for anybody who's not familiar, I think it's at attest.org actually. They have a nice website. Ethereum attestation service is a service for making attestations like open source public goods on Ethereum. And it's widely used and it's got this great primitive. I've wanted to integrate the Ethereum attestation service into what we've been doing for the past maybe 2 years or so since I heard about it. And we just haven't had the development resources yet to do that. We're a fairly small team. Like most of what we've done has been on a volunteer basis. As just the way things worked out, I can go more into the history, but basically, there's the this team is basically been bootstrapped, and we bootstrapped the communities. The original team that created it, they're quite well resourced, but they pivoted to something that's similar, but not quite contributing to it right now directly. And it's been me and several community members who just love the idea and have been basically building all this because we love it. But we haven't had like a lot of resources to hire developers to do all these different things. And we've been managing to get some grants here and stuff like that. And so I would love to integrate the Ethereum Respect Attestation Service. And I don't think that as an alternative to reward participants. I think that's as an addition because I think soulbound NFTs, like I don't know, you might be familiar with Vitalik's article about soulbound NFTs. Vitalik came up with this idea of soulbound, and I think it has a lot of benefits that are complementary with the Ethereum attestation service, and attestations alone don't provide the primitive that you need for some of these fractal governance processes. And actually having that core respect is vitally important. But at the same time, it should be making attestations too, to make it more composable with these systems and get the benefits of it. And that's something that I have a whole project in Optimism. We have a Notion site, and I have a big project where I have all the research curated, and so that's ready to go for whenever developers are interested in helping us out with this and building it, and working to help support that development so we can integrate that. And yeah, thanks a lot, Eric, for that question. That's a great point. Thanks for the thumbs up too. Yeah, and speaking that, we're talking about technical stuff now, so we can move on to the fourth chapter. I think this is out of seven too. So I've probably been speaking for over a half hour, so feel free to let me know if we're short on time or anything like that, and I can speed up, Ben. But I can go into this technical infrastructure and then maybe just to check on where we're at right now. I have this agenda here, so tools and technical infrastructure is this section, and then we'll kind of more focus on progressive decentralization while maintaining purpose and how the respect game can help VDAO and next steps and resources for however much we have time. And then, of course, like I meant to answer this, like add this too, but I think Q&A is definitely like if people just want to share their thoughts or like just general thoughts and Q&A. I'd love to have some time to hear what everybody thinks here. So yeah, basically we're over halfway through the presentation, I think, and I see Ben says we're good on time, no worries. Was late for 2 hour window. Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much, Ben. Appreciate the letting me know. I see Eric's laughing about that. Yeah, so I'll make sure to wrap it up soon though, so that we have time to hear from everybody and have conversations about it because I'm very curious to hear what everybody thinks about it. And yeah, appreciate the guidance. So now we're in this tools and technical infrastructure section. I think this is chapter 4 here. So um, yeah, so the team that originally created the Eden on EOS and everything like that, they're working on another toolkit for this too, in a way. But it's currently under development. It's been under development for like years now. So this has been the main toolkit that's been in use for the past couple years now. Because we ported onto EVM because previously we were building on a non-EVM chain, EOS, and then when we started Optimism Fractal, we built all our tools on EVM. Most of the software is open source with permissive MIT license, so everybody can use it and fork it and stuff like that. Contributions are welcome. And basically, the Optimism Toolkit is this suite of tools for, we call them fractal apps, apps for democratic governance and community engagement, playing the respect game and making decisions on chain with respect, and in general making decisions with respect. And they're designed for both technical and non-technical communities and composable with existing governance systems and have modular components for customized implementation. You could see a couple of like the little previews of a couple of the apps that we use for playing the reset games below. And then again, there's a article here with lots of details and links to respect and respect tokens and fractal democracy. There's basically two core applications that have two different independent architectures and two different use cases. One we call Fractogram and OrDAO, and it's a little bit confusing right now. We had to kind of like solidify it a little bit. But basically, there's like OrDAO and Fractogram is the main application that we use for live events, and OrDAO is the smart contract infrastructure that's linked up with Fractogram. So Fractogram is a front end. You can see like an artistic rendering of it on the right side there on the screen, and then an article about Fractogram and how it could work. And this is live now, although it doesn't quite look like this yet. And it's in development and it integrates with OrDAO smart contracts. So these Fractogram and OrDAO are basically designed for live events, and then OrDAO has some really powerful features for uh, consent-based fractal democracy, executing on-chain transactions based on votes with respect tokens that overcome voter apathy, voter fatigue, traditional issues in governance. And the Respect.Games app also has its own governance infrastructure where people who earn respect automatically form councils on chain. And the Respect.Games app also has its own front end where it's meant mostly for asynchronous gameplay and community coordination. So like there's a lot of differences between these two apps. But right now, basically the Respect.Games app is mostly for asynchronous games where you don't have to be in a meeting. And Fractogram is for live events or in meetings. And these both have different use cases and benefits and are created by different development teams that work closely together in ways, but also have kind of forked off into their own versions. And then on this website, we also have different, overview of the benefits and capabilities, as well as the broader software product suite. Because in addition to these core games for playing and core apps for playing the respect game and making decisions on chain, we also have a bunch of articles about like things you could do with respect basically like we've integrated with hats protocol and we've experimented and have a lot of concepts like we have a game called agendas that we play. Actually, we have another event called Optimism Town Hall where we use respect to vote on topics in a democratic manner to set agendas. And we play that quite often, like every other week, basically. And then we have respect trees and retropos and lots of concepts that are kind of like in earlier stages in councils. Some of these aren't on chain and fully developed yet, but they're more so conceptual. Whereas these two apps these are actually built, like fully built, and some of the other ones are built using or played using on like off chain or on chain software like Snapshot and so forth, and they have specifications. But these apps are actually apps you can just play and build with your community, and we're coming together to build a more full product suite and like curate this right now. So it's more easy for everybody to understand what apps and games are most helpful for them to play. So I'll provide a little overview of like the three main apps. So OrDAO, it's very actively developed, and it's short for Optimistic Respect-Based DAO. And the core innovation here is the Optimistic Respect-Based Executive Contract. I won't go into too much detail, but this software is like really fantastic and amazing. It's for both playing Respect game and making decisions. And we have lots of videos about it. Like the developers, they join. This was created by an amazing developer called Das, who's a founding member of Optimistics and Optimum Fractal. We've been collaborating since the beginning of Eden Fractal and before then too. And we have all these videos where we discussed OrDAO and he does his office hours. And he actually has OrDAO Fractal now. So lots of resources you can learn more about it. But that's, I guess, how you can know from the beginning. We can go much more in detail and do a helpful episode on that if we want in the future. Optimism Fractal Council. This is a council process that we started for Optimism Fractal, and we have like a tripartite governance structure that's also probably out of the scope of this introductory call, but like we basically have these specifications for how these all work. And this is complementing OrDAO with an off-chain process. The Fractogram application, going back to like kind of the more basics, this is the app where people can play Respect game during events. You have a link here, somewhere here, that people can start playing and just like log in easily with Privy and start to play the game. It's like pretty simple. And then the Respect.Games app. This app, if you go to Respect.Games, you can start playing this and create a community very easily. And that's something that it's really powerful too. This is a great team member named Vlad who took the lead on building this app and learned how to and deploy this app so people can play asynchronous games and not have to spend much time playing. And he has articles and white papers and so forth, and communities have been deploying here. So that's a very simple way to get started too. So excellent apps, and there's also videos about this too. So people who want to learn more about these apps, we can get in touch with us and as well as learn from the videos. And then I suppose now we can get into this progressive decentralization and encourage people to check out the optimist.io/tools to learn more about the apps. But now I'll get into the chapter 5 about the progressive decentralization. And so I'll go over the generally. I have some slides here about the decentralized challenge, the challenge of decentralization in general, and the earned reputation approach with the respect game and governance formation, and the evolution over time of how the respect game enables this evolution over time, where a community can start with a really compelling core purpose, such as V DAO does, and then gradually decentralize in this way, where it's like it's maintaining and fostering that original purpose, but growing, as well as other examples. Like there's some communities who have played the respect game and done fractal democracy that started with no vision or like a very rough vision that was very amorphous kind of and ambiguous, and then it grew over time. So yeah, basically, many DAOs, like I participate in many DAOs, and other people probably have here too who are watching. And many DAOs struggle to maintain a mission while decentralizing, and there's some common challenges here, like sometimes a founder has control, but then maybe the founder leaves, or maybe the community has different ideas. And then sometimes a lot of DAOs are token weighted with people can buy the tokens and then it gets captured by whoever has the most money. And a lot of times the mission drifts and people don't really adhere to what the original intention was, as more people get involved. And it can also make it difficult for people to get involved too. If people don't understand it, it can be messy and chaotic. And with the respect game, it creates this natural pathway for community to gradually get more ownership in governance decisions, and for the community to decide when the right time is to decentralize more and enable the community to make more decisions, like kind of imbuing more power to this kind of DAO governance process with fractal democracy. So basically, as more early members keep participating in the respect games and they contribute more, people who contribute a lot more and participate more will gain more influence in the community over time. And at first, people don't need to do anything with that influence other than just know they have it. But over time, they can start experimenting with the decentralized governance software that we have and use it. And it's built to make it so it's very easy to get started and then gradually add in more over time. And yeah, so everybody is like randomly assessing each other's contributions each week in this randomized way with a lot of sample size. So people who tend to participate and contribute more tend to get more influence and governance. And this enables the founding teams and also people who are early contributors, like such as people on this call, and who might be interested in really playing a leading role in VDAO to gradually distribute control and have that decision-making power in each event about who's really helping the most. And it creates this natural meritocracy where people who are contributing to the purpose will get more influence to help foster that purpose and help foster the community's growth going forward. As I said, this can gradually be um, this gradually enables, like you could just start playing the respect game, not even tell your community about the governance processes, because just the respect game on its own is like fun and exciting. But the community can implement these processes, these protocols, these governance systems that we've designed and that our developers have built to actually enable where you can form councils through these systems, or you can have it where you can vote on proposals with your respect or your reputation tokens and actually execute on-chain decisions based upon amount of respect that people have. And yeah, basically people can implement it as they want. They could also design open source software to have it in different ways, but basically like the kind of out of the box formulation of it is designed specifically to help communities gradually decentralize. There's several communities who we're working to implement who have like their specific purposes, and we're working to help them achieve those goals basically and have it where it's very easy for people to start playing. And over time, as people get more involved and they learn more about how they can use their respect and why they might want to earn more respect and how that can help them in governments in governance with the community. And yeah, it can help transition from an original purpose to eventually have a very mature governance with that original purpose still imbued, and really grown throughout all these collective meetings and people understanding each other and that culture being like reinforced and grown and developed throughout each meeting that people come together for. So I have a lot of experience with this. I watched the purpose-led and member-led DAOs section in the March community call that I believe Ben hosted a few weeks ago. And Chris had presented this concept of purpose-led DAOs and member-led DAOs, and how V DAO is like there's a really amazing purpose here with the regenerative network states and regenerative solutions that V DAO is building, and that Fifth World has incubated V DAO to build. And so I'm really like a huge supporter and really want to support what V DAO is doing here. And I see that V DAO is aiming to decentralize more and also aiming to engage more people in the groups. And so I see how the respect game, and I want to include this slide here showing some of these screenshots that I think Chris or Ben had curated in that community call to show how like the respect game can help in both these situations. And I have experience with the original Eden community and Eden on EOS and Eden Fractal and Genesis Fractal and Optimus Fractal. All these communities had variations that I can go into more detail about. Some of them start out with like a very not very clear purpose, and some of them start with a very clear purpose. And it depends on the kind of community, what they want to do. But in general, there's a lot of benefit to having a really strong purpose in the beginning. And the respect game can support it in either way, help communities form consensus, or can help foster that purpose in the ways that I described here. And happy to go into any more of that as well. I'm almost at the hour, so I think I'll try to wrap it up at the top of the hour so we can have the full second hour um, for more discussions. Rosemary, thanks for sharing the links, by the way. And Rosemary said to zoom in so people can see it. I'll try to zoom in. I did take a screenshot from this YouTube video, so I don't know if you can see it well because it's a little bit blurry. But yeah, I recommend checking out the video that was shared on the VDAO channel for more details here. And it might be a bit messy, but you could see here how the core purpose kind of emanates out to the guardians of purpose, the high contributors, and wider community system, wider community ecosystem in a purpose-led DAO. Whereas with a member-led DAO, it's kind of like each member is working to collectively create that core purpose, and the respect can help facilitate this, where members are using their respect tokens to vote on the core purpose, but it can also help facilitate this, where that core purpose is imbued in, say, the way that people play the respect game, and say, what did you do to help us achieve our purpose? And then people who have more respect will help, like, will get more power to kind of share that purpose with new community members and in decisions that the community makes in the future as it more gradually decentralizes. Um, so chapter six, thanks Rosemary for the suggestion. Enhancing like how the respect game can potentially help VDAO. So I'd love to help the VDAO community help play the respect game and enjoy the respect game if the VDAO community is interested. And I think there's lots of opportunities for collaboration here. So I curated some sections about enhancing contributor points, integrating with existing governance, implementation models, and enhancing VPass. Maybe I'll go over this pretty quickly, but I spoke with Ben, and Ben said that one of the things that VDAO is aiming to do is be able to implement contributor or rather contribution measurement systems in a way to figure out how much people are contributing. And the respect game, as I said, it has this decentralized peer evaluation service or system, which I think really provides that very well. And with this on-chain reputation system. And I think a lot of the stuff I went over already, so I won't go into too much detail. But yeah, basically, I think that this could basically help if the VDAO community were to start playing the respect game sometimes at some of these community calls, or well, this is the P2P learning session, but I know that on the YouTube channel you can find the community calls and several different calls. So the V DAO community could potentially play, or anybody else watching with their own community who's interested in a community that may be complementary to V DAO or your local community or whatever it may be. You can implement the respect game and choose whatever kind of way you want to play. If it's measuring contributions to V DAO or optimism or your local community or whatever it may be, then you can have that way to enhance contributor points and do it on chain. And then like I said, it's very complementary to existing governance processes. So it can be complementary to like a just founder-led kind of system where the founders are just totally deciding what it is as a way to gradually decentralize. I know that VDAO has pod and circle organization systems and different meetings for governance and so forth. So each pod or circle could play their own respect game if they want, and it can provide the way that these can grow and be their own kind of independent and autonomous entities or communities while still collaborating with each other using the respect and doing it in a very transparent way. And yeah, so it could be integrated in like a very light way, just playing the spec game, and could just try playing once or twice. But it could also be tailored. Like if the VDAO community or any other community likes this, then myself and my team members we're working to help implement it for different communities to whatever extent that they would like to, whether it's playing their spec game, the full governance processes. We're also building a lot of complementary tools and so forth too that could be potentially integrated as well. And then yeah, looking to VPass and also I've been following the work of Unicorn Wallet quite a bit. And so I've noticed, I didn't get a chance to post screenshots, but there's some really interesting screenshots showing how VPass looks that Ben, I think, had shared or Chris shared last event. And so that's really interesting too, how you could eventually, we're also designing similar kinds of like community, like, like profile systems and stuff like that, where you could have respect and integrate with potentially other systems like governance roles with HATS protocol and stuff like that. So lots of ways that we could explore potentially enhancing VPass and community events and stuff like that for VDAO if you're all interested. And then yeah, chapter 7, next steps and resources. Looking forward to hearing everybody's thoughts. I shared a lot of educational resources. I could share these slides in the chat if it'd be useful. And happy to help with support too. If people are interested in this, you're welcome to join our events too on Thursdays. They're currently on break now, but they'll be returning next month, starting on May 15th. And then we have weekly events on Thursdays. Everybody's welcome to join these. And you can also join our chats and so forth to ask questions there. And you can reach out to me. I shared a lot of these, but optimistics.io, you can find a lot of details about Optimistics. And the different communities, you can find links to all those resources I shared at optimistics.io. That's Mystic spelled with a Y. We have the Eden Creators YouTube channel that I showed before, where you can watch videos, as well as you can find show notes on there. And you can check out our communities, Optimism Fractal, Eden Fractal, check out the code repositories and so forth at optimistics.io/tools. And from there, you can find the GitHub repositories if you want to dive in. And for any developers out there, and we're also working to publish more case studies too. Right now, I'd say these websites are probably the best ways to see case studies, or the YouTube channels. I'm happy to provide links to because I know there's a lot of resources, and we're working to organize these so everybody can see them more easily. So yeah, and Optimistics.io, optimismfractal.com, and edenfractal.com are three of the best websites where you can learn more about these and find links. And yeah, happy to see. Another idea too is that we could try playing a respect game at some point. We have 5 of us. We could even play a little game here if we want, or we could have an open discussion, and we could always do that another time if we'd like. And yeah, I'm excited to explore potential collaborations, and hope you've all enjoyed this presentation of the respect game. Hopefully it clarified the respect game for you and it's clear, but also happy to answer any questions um, to provide a more clear overview of the respect game, and or any specifics about it if you want to dive in deeper to it. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. These are some other thoughts too that were in there, but I think that's probably enough though. So I encourage everybody to explore the resources and so forth, and feel free to reach out to me or our communities. I'm Dan Singjoy once again. You can find me on Telegram or X or wherever at Dancing Joy. Unfortunately, my Twitter account got shut down or something like that, so I'm trying to get it reactivated. So you can reach out to me on Telegram or something like that if you want, and optimistics.io, dancingjoy.com. And yeah, I'm very curious to hear everybody's thoughts. And thanks once again so much to Ben and Chris and everybody in the VDAO community for inviting me and providing such a welcoming space, and everything that you're doing to help create a more regenerative society and more regenerative DAOs. And thanks so much, Ben and Joshua and Eric and Rosemary, for being here and listening, as well as everybody who's watching.
Well, thank you, Dan, for joining us today and to take the time to put this presentation together and show us what you've been working on and what you've created with the Respect Game, and diving into how VDAO might be able to use this and how it might integrate into VPass. Um, does anybody have any questions before I start rattling off one or two here? Yeah, Eric, go ahead.
Curious about the setup, because you said like you do a bunch of Zoom calls, but then you reward people with NFTs. So how do you link the presence on Zoom and the wallets that you reward afterwards?
Yep, thanks for the question, and thanks Ben as well. So to answer your question, Eric, so we have Zoom calls and then we go into breakout rooms right now. That's how we currently do it. Zoom has a breakout room functionality where we just do that. I host the event, and after a little intro, then we go into our breakout rooms, and then each room basically has their own kind of game in our app. Usually we use that Fractogram app that I showed a little bit of. And so that app, I could also provide like a demo of it if it would be useful. But basically, that's the app where people form consensus on it. People will vote for who they think helped the most and the second most and so forth there. And then once they form consensus on that, then it goes to the final screen where it says like submit on chain basically. And then once it gets, we encourage everybody to push that button to submit on chain after they play the game. And then that triggers, so we usually use the OrDAO software for all our events. And the OrDAO software basically has a proposal system where actually every time that somebody submits that, it's actually submitting a proposal technically to OrDAO. And then if it meets the threshold requirements, like it has the right amount of minimum votes and stuff like that, then respect will be distributed automatically based upon that to have it distributed. So there's a bit of technical complexity there that I can get into more detail if you're interested. But basically at a high level, basically people join the Zoom calls independently of the app. We share a link to the app. People play the game in the app and then they hit submit on chain, and then our software automatically distributes it as long as it's like legit and it's not like random people doing it or something like that. Then the respect gets distributed to their wallets automatically. Also, the side note too, there's been a lot of development into like building an app that's like an all-in-one app, so you don't have to use Zoom, but it's like a app that's more independent using WebRTC, so it's not dependent on Zoom, and you just play it all in one place. Currently, that was worked on for a while, but it's currently not in existence, so or not in use at least. So yeah, right now we have Zoom alongside with an independent app, and the independent app handles the on-chain submission and respect distribution via the smart contracts. Thanks, Eric.
I got one here.
Cool. I'm happy to hear it.
So, following my notes here. Uh, Definitely this is kind of like sentiment based and people kind of voting based on their experience with individuals and how they're observing this individual's engagement or what they're doing. And I'm curious kind of where you see the line where it crosses over or where you bump up against like task oriented recognition or task oriented real world task type things within a community. There's, of course, reputation management. Have you guys thought about what that looks like going beyond that to the actual compensation for skill contributions or things like that? Or do you guys have like a barrier where, like, yeah, we're not going to step into this particular realm? Just what are your general thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Joshua. Great question. So, um, well, maybe one more thing I can add quickly too is that oftentimes when people share their work, they'll usually speak for, 4 or 5 minutes and share what they do. A lot of times people share their screens or they'll share links, so they'll share like specific resources so people can get a better idea of what they contributed. Sometimes they might share metrics and so forth as well. And yeah, that's been our main focus, basically, this subjective evaluation, because we see how, a lot of metrics can be gamed, or like a lot of times if somebody tries to make like a specific, I want this done, something, that's very important to have. In many cases, you need like an RFP, like a request for proposal. This is what we need to get done, and here's what we need somebody to do, and so forth. But in a lot of cases, like people don't know exactly what's needed to be done, and it's like the respect game enables people to just contribute how they see best fit, and then it's more of a like a retroactive award or compensation system where it's like if somebody builds something that nobody even thought of, and then they come and they say, "Hey, I built this," and he's like, "Oh, I love it. That's amazing." And it's often easier. Like there's a whole concept of retrofunding where it's easier to evaluate past impact when something's done, as opposed to scoping out something in the future. And so, yeah, our main focus has been that and using this objective system where it's like it's not it's much more difficult to game it than with like a specific metric. There's I think it's called Goodhart's law, where it's like if there's a metric, oftentimes people try to game it, and so this is like it allows people to just use whatever metrics in their head or whatever kind of um, things that they think that the community should do in their head and just measure that, and then you get a lot of sample size from the variety of rankings from different people in that randomized way week after week. That being said. So yeah, our main focus has been this, and we haven't focused specifically so much on like the specifically scoped project and achieving that. But just because we see that, there's a lot to do and there's lots of other teams who are working on specifically scoped projects, like, I don't know, for example, Charmverse and others, they have like proposal systems and so forth. But that being said, I see it as very complementary because I think that both of these things are really helpful for a community to have both this retroactive kind of subjective view and then this forward-looking, we need this done, and we need to allocate this amount of funding for this project or whatever. And the respect game can help with those decisions. So, like, as opposed to say, maybe there's a council process where some community would elect a council to determine how to create the RFP or like the product requirement document that people need to achieve. And then they would need to figure out a budget for that and figure out how much money do we have to achieve this and what do we need to achieve and so forth. And then who will review it to determine if the applicants approved and did that correctly, basically, and met all the requirements. And the respecting can also help in this aspect too, because it provides solutions for figuring out in that democratic way, in that meritocratic way, okay, well, who should be the reviewers or the counselors? Is it going to be everybody in the community? That's probably not, because that's probably like not going to scale much and probably not everybody wants to get involved. So you probably want to pick some people to do that. Um, and so you can have this like decentralized way and this meritocratic democratic way to choose those counselors or reviewers or project managers or whatever it may be that will have that power of like managing that budget and potentially, request a certain amount of budget with this democratic process where people are voting with the respect tokens on, is this a good counselor? Is this a good budget process and so forth? And did this person achieve the goals of the program? So yeah, it can help with that for sure as like a complementary way to make that more democratic and meritocratic and make sure that those decisions about what gets funded, who's making decisions, and so forth can be made in a more fair way and more fast and a more efficient and fun way. Um, and is also more so focusing on just like that subjective retroactive evaluation, which provides the governance processes that enable you to make other decisions using other tools like Charmbers or whatever you might use to do those kind of more proactive scoping out of things that need to be done and finishing them. Does that all, does that answer it well?
Yeah, it did really well, actually. Pretty much covered it.
Cool. Glad to hear. I see there's some comments in the chat. I don't know if I'm just reading those, but I see Eric's unmuted. Do you want to share something, Eric?
I have a revenue model in mind. Do you have any way to make money with this?
Yeah. So, like I said, a lot of it's been based on volunteer effort over the past few years, and that's been a lot of grants, like just basically going for grants. It hasn't been a lot of grants. Like we need to build up our business model and revenue model and get more funding so that we can better fund core team members and better be resourced to fund more contributors. And a lot of it's been, people have just been inspired to contribute so far because they love it in different ways and they see the potential in the future. And they also see how when they contribute to it, even in volunteer capacity, then they earn respect, and that could later be used to distribute funding and so forth. Um, but Yeah, we do have lots of like this is like a very common topic for our teams and our communities. So, I mean, for one thing, we've been fortunate to earn from Optimism Retro funding, which provides funding for people building on the Optimism superchain for different purposes and so forth. And we're quite involved with Optimism community. And then also we have a Gitcoin application live that I just got put up the last minute. I mentioned I have a approved research project from the um, Optimism Collective, where I've been earning some funding to do some research on this. And we're now actually implementing with some larger communities too that are much larger than Optimism Fractal or Eden Fractal, that are also successful businesses too, that have a lot of revenue. And these businesses are expressing interest in having more features developed as well as there's game deployed for them. So we're working on building pricing models and like pricing pages that would make it easier for people to see how they can start playing the respect game. And we can offer different services like our consulting, or we're still exploring. Maybe there's some software as a service model in there as well. I should also note too, the original Fractally white paper that conceived of the respect game, it didn't conceive of respect tokens as soulbound non-transferable tokens. It conceived of respect tokens as liquid tokens, like a community currency, where basically liquidity pools could be formed with these liquid tokens, and then people could join the events and directly earn funding from this liquid token. And it could be a way to create like this decentralized community currency. Kind of similar to how like Bitcoin like rewards contributors for contributing computing power with their computers with a liquid token, Bitcoin. The original idea for Fractally was that fractal communities would reward community members with liquid tokens contributing to a community cause. And this was the original conception that many people got really excited about, and a funding model that we saw as like a funding model that could be sufficient to fund it entirely. That's also why the original team with Dan Larimer and his team, they backed away from that due to regulations, and they weren't sure during uh, they're living, they had team members in the US at the time, and they wanted to, the United States regulations were very strict in the previous administration. But that's still a possibility and something that we're exploring, having it where like there's a lot of benefits to having a soulbound and reputation token, and I believe that should definitely be there either way. But it's also possible for any community to also deploy a community currency that's liquid in addition to the soulbound token as well, which would mean that people could potentially buy that token, people could invest in that token to help support the community, and to give the community more resources so that every time people play respect games, then they would do that. And then also like that research project that I have with the Optimism Collective, that's been specifically researching with this soulbound token mechanism, but establishing a legal entity alongside it, which can take in funds from, big funders or networks like say the Ethereum Foundation or Optimism Foundation and so forth, or big DAOs or big companies, and be able to allocate that according to the respect distributions, or according to what the community consensus is with the governance protocols, and do that in a way that can integrate with legal systems as well, so that it can raise funding from established businesses or established DAOs and so forth, and then use that, and we could basically market to those different DAOs or businesses how this can help them, and then use that to distribute some funding on their behalf, and there could be some sort of business model there as well. So right now it's still kind of early stages, working to form the business model, and we've had some opportunities here for core team members, but yeah, we're working to scale it up and find the most sustainable business models, and really like enable these kind of longer term institutions to support the development of the fractal tools and respect game, and enable any community to deploy this for their own purpose, and also help them be more self-sufficient as well. I see Rosemary has been sharing links.
I
Thanks,
can,
Rosemary.
I could see a lot of interest from pop-up cities or free cities or network states. Like a lot of those groups are putting together things that are on chain, but they don't necessarily have the governance for it. So probably a good target.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've been following network states and pop-up cities quite a lot. I would love to go one time. When I was in Denver, we met somebody from Zuzulu who expressed interest in implementing the respect game. And actually, one of the people we're working with, he's all about network states, and he wants to eventually form like network states with the respect game. He's been thinking about it for years now. Um, so yeah, that's definitely a that's definitely a kind of collaboration that we're looking forward to. And VDAO is also working on regenerative network states too. And so, yeah, I would love to collaborate with the VDAO community and yeah, explore how this could be because it's mostly operating in these small communities so far, like relatively small. Most has been there's a few hundred people who joined some elections, and then there was a community of 30 people, and then a lot of times there's just like maybe half a dozen or a dozen people who join the events. But we really want to scale it up so that, millions and millions of people are playing all around the world, and it's really helping large network states to thrive.
Are you mostly US based?
Uh, I am. But then we have team members throughout Europe. And then, uh, I mean, on the Optimistics team, we have team members throughout Europe. And then in our communities are open for anybody to join with Optimism Fractal and Eden Fractal. So people join from all around. We've had people from Asia and Africa and South America to join. So it's been pretty mixed.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing if I can make a quick commentary. I come from a lot of the network state space as well, and my background is all operations and making things work in business spaces. And you're mentioning the same type of thing, I think that VDAO is kind of experiencing, and that a lot of these groups are experiencing, and that a lot of solutions are kind of emerging from, which is like, how do we actually produce the value to support our community? Because a lot of those communities still need something to actually support it. So I think what you're kind of touching on there with creating some sort of business model that's attached to it, that's somehow driving it forward is the thing that actually brings a solution like this to scale. And it's the thing that has to get deployed to like these network state solutions as well, where they have these functional elements that are actually getting things done. Because there has to be some kind of value production there that goes. That's why I was asking about the tasks versus sentiment, because the tasks are the things that end up attaching it to some kind of productive value, I think. So that's a thing that we work with. We're developing our community model, which includes occupational liquidity through a tokenized economy within our actual digital community, but doing real world work, like actually doing labor and skills work to produce for the community. And so we're thinking about how does market value compare to good work, right? So you're talking about, hey, who did the best work today, who had the biggest impact, and you vote on that. And then there's also like which one actually produced the value that increased the value of our community as well, beyond, like, not beyond, but there's something about that interplay between the goodness and the work value or productive value as well. So you're right in that space. I find that super interesting.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. Thanks for sharing, and I'd love to learn more about your work too. I think I heard you speak on one of the previous VDAO calls a little bit, and I would be happy to dive into more about your work and your projects. If you have any links or anything, I'd be happy to look into it. Thanks, Eric, for sharing that link as well. And yeah, so I mean, there's a lot to say there and a lot to explore there, and I suppose maybe like a couple maybe things I can add is like I think. Like you mentioned how the tasks can kind of like help to translate into that market value and then market valuation and so forth. Um, but I think like I could see the tasks based kind of approach for sure playing a really big role with that. But I think there's also this huge potential, and even independently of any task-based system, to build things that are really useful and build things that could potentially be very highly valued with just this kind of subjective retroactive system. Like, for example, I compared Fractally and the original Fractal white paper to Bitcoin. A lot of us were doing this in the beginning because, Bitcoin doesn't have any specific tasks. It just, except for mine Bitcoin, basically. But it's just like this really simple system. I mean, it's complex, but it's like this like really elegant system, I should say, that it just the incentives are perfectly aligned, and it's now almost as big as Apple. It's almost like it's almost as big as the biggest companies in the world, and there's nobody asking anybody to do anything. Like there is people that naturally emerges and naturally forms. People are building companies around Bitcoin, and they're now saying, they're hiring people and they're saying, "Hey, please do this for us. We need a website to better promote Bitcoin or whatever." But Bitcoin itself is just like this naturally emergent, well-designed ecosystem that just rewards people for doing things that help it, and that's managed to attain this huge amount of value. And I can see fractally and these fractal systems to do the same thing. And in our experience, even though we've been mostly self-funded, uh, like all of the tools that we have, and all of the websites we have and all these educational resources, they've been like labors of love and labors of people getting some funding. And I think they're super useful. So I think once we add that task-based kind of element in the future, then it like compounds it and it makes it way more powerful. But yeah, I'd love to like potentially explore collaborations and see how like those task-based kind of approaches and the things that you're doing with your work and with your organization or business could like potentially synergize with these kinds of like subjective measurements with the respect game.
Yeah, I'm already seeing how that ties into what we're doing. And maybe I can ask a question on like for V DAO, or if you're going this way already, Ben, I'm kind of interested in maybe like that practical application as far as things that V DAO has been talking about with ways to kind of activate and monetize the community. Of course, that's monetizing, but yeah, how does the game potentially also support a monetization element within a community like V DAO is what I'm super interested in.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think like as we continue to explore the concept of the respect game with Dan, we'll kind of start to discover some of the potential there. Um, like one thing I'd be very interested in to do at some point is bring Dan back into the community for like actually playing it out and like letting the community have a try at it, and get a sense of it. It to me, there's like various elements that are interesting around like the fact that it's that you're utilizing a soulbound token. One is like that identity layer piece that we're also looking at with our credentials on VPass. So how that could fit into VPass with that in some way, I think there's something there. Um, and there's also the piece around like finding or trying to bring more context to the work that's being done. So like there's a very cold aspect in tracking contributions is one format, right? Something that's like Asana or Trello or something that it's lacking that human connection, that human interaction. Whereas this respect game brings that human interaction back in uh, to the measurement piece and allows for a bit more context to be brought up. Whether that's like an additional amount of points that can be earned for the contributions you've done or whatever it might be, is something worth like really looking into and seeing if it could be implemented.
Sounds amazing. Well, yeah, I'd be happy to discuss further if you have any questions about the respect game or how it could be used by V DAO. Be happy to schedule another call sometime, and also, yeah, happy to join one of these sessions again in the future and play the respect game. Everybody can get a feel for it too. And yeah, that's what I'm fully focused on it as well as Rosemary here, who's been sharing a lot of great links, and several other community members who are like basically fully focused on helping communities such as V DAO implement the respect game or figure out the best ways to implement the respect game, or like fit it in, or also like develop better software and so forth. That's what we're working on. We're fully committed to helping do that. So, and we hope it can be very useful for V DAO, and looking forward to any collaborations.
Josh, another thing to your point is that I wonder if there's not some way that, like as you pointed out, the chicken raising in the backyard game. Um, is there a way that the respect game could be used to incentivize actions that are bringing some sort of a revenue to the DAO? I could fully see how that could be implemented in various different ways. Like especially once you develop a hub, once you have a physical hub, for instance, developing different micro businesses out of that hub, that then bring in revenue for that hub specifically.
Well, even if there's a layer where the motivation is bringing prosperity to the members themselves. I'm just playing with this chicken raising thing, right? If people are bragging and engaging and bragging about the chickens or the success of their garden, we know that those things are going to actually benefit those people. And so just the participation in the digital community level is probably worth something, at least a subscription to them, to participate in this community that's playing a game of competing on who's raising the chickens best, or who's making the most eggs, right? Or who's playing this game on who's being most regenerative with their backyard. So that alone is already a platform for somebody to throw a little something into, to play in that pot with community of people that are engaged at the same level with V DAO. And then that's just a subscription model. And obviously that subscription model rolls back then downhill or uphill, I guess, to Dan, where that's just a subscription model that actually is supporting their efforts to keep supporting the software that you're able to support or provide to your membership. So it's actually benefiting them, to generating some kind of return for the end user, but they're actually going to generate some sort of income for V DAO because they're going to subscribe because of the features in the game that they're playing with the rest of the people in the community.
Yep, that all makes sense. And that's I know one of the communities or several of the communities who we've been working with behind the scenes to implement it, they have paid memberships, and that's one of the main ways that they're planning to monetize it too. So yeah, it brought a lot of value for people. A lot of people just love the game, and they love joining, and they get all these benefits from networking and meeting people who have aligned interests and they're interested in the same thing. And then there's all the other benefits with the financial capital allocation and governance systems and so forth. But it can be like a very compelling value proposition. And there's a lot of communities where people are, paying a lot of money to be parts of communities because it provides a lot of value for them. And so respecting can fit into that kind of role. And yeah, I'm excited to see how that could potentially work with VDAO. I've been wondering how VDAO will uh, grow and what the next steps are. So I'm interested to learn from y'all. I don't know, in this call or in future calls as I listen to more and join more. But I'm very curious to see how it'll all go. Nice to see everybody too. Welcome. Thanks for joining.
Seeing some new folks that are joining. Please, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Dan any questions. Maybe you're joining us from watching this live on X, and connecting that way, or just maybe found some free time to join us, having registered previously. But something I wanted to ask, Josh, do you think that like, are you thinking like in terms of maybe it's like a perk of a membership that you get to participate in the respect game, and it's like an extra way to earn, maybe it's more governance, or maybe it's something else, right? Is that what you were kind of in thinking?
Yeah, it's definitely a perk element for participation in a community that has aligned interests and values, right? So we're all here for V DAO because of the regenerative network states kind of conglomeration, the decentralized and regenerative combination we talk about a lot. So if people are actually, they got a V pass, it might be a perk that's on the V pass, it might be more of a monthly thing and instead of one time, however that works in that economic structure. It becomes a feature that motivates the members to be more productive for themselves and to produce value for themselves. So the whole regenerative concept here is that we're creating a community of people who are regenerative, and the regenerative concept itself is that we are producing more, right? I think we were talking about basically the idea of it being an enhancement or something that is available to the members of V DAO, right? So if it is one of a suite of value that you're providing to V DAO members, then it makes sense for them to actually inject the capital, the finances at that point, through a subscription or however that gets designed, to actually enjoy that benefit, right? And so they're being benefited by growing eggs or whatever they're producing back there. They're sharing in the game. which is actually enhancing their life, bringing value to their life. So they're going to pay whatever subscription to be a part of this game and part of the community that's playing the game and different games. So maybe there's an egg game. Maybe there's how much food did you return to your community game? How much, whatever these different metrics are that are based on the actual V DAO regenerative community model. I think the first step, and maybe this is a good place for Dan to throw in some framework, but like what are the type of things that a community starts to think about how they can create categories or metrics, or I don't know what you would describe, the good things. How do we start to come up with a list of the good things that we want to build the games around?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. Lots of different games in the community, and I can see a lot of potential there. So mostly we've kept it simple in our communities where we just like play one game and we just play it over and over again each week, or and then sometimes we make little changes to it, like depending on like if we maybe tweak our mission and we want to change and focus on a new thing for this year, or like when we come to a new point when we decide if we want to kind of pivot our strategy. But I think there's value in keeping it simple and having like just one game that people can dependably play, and they don't have to like see, think, like what's the new game this week? Like I think there's a lot of value in having different games, and I think that as communities grow, like there'll be more like capacity and bandwidth for people to experience more games. But mostly we've played two games at the communities we've hosted, and the communities that I participated in that do the Respect game and Fractals. And these two games, one is the Respect game, and for the most part we've kept it where we've just had the same game prompt. And by game prompt I mean like basically it's one game prompt, which can be like either what you do to help achieve our mission, or maybe like in Optimism Fractal we do what you do or what you do to help grow optimism. We have it like a little poetically, but at the same time it's about like growing and helping the Optimism Collective and the super chain. And then like at some point we changed that from help to grow because we figured it was a bit more fun. But it's mostly just been the same thing every time that we've met and we've played, and people just share what they did help optimism. That way people can like dependably like just contribute to whatever the community goal is, and then keep doing that and have a place where they can always do that because people appreciate like that consistency. After what we do with Optimism Fractal, and I didn't share this in the presentation, like I mentioned it, but I didn't share. We have a website called optimismtownhall.com. And if you scroll down to optimismfractal.com, you'll see it as well. And Optimism Town Hall is a event that happens right after the Respect game. So usually what we do, we host 2-hour events, or it's really 2 events, and each one is an hour long. And one is Optimism Fractal, which is where we play the Respect game. And then after that, we all come back to the community room. And then in the same room, we start up a second event that we call Optimism Town Hall. And during this Optimism Town Hall, we play a game called Agendas, which is like short for community agendas or consensus agendas or collaborative agendas. And that's where basically we vote on topics to discuss. Usually me or some other community member will make a topic proposal sometime in the week, and then we have like some basic rules, like agendas, like whichever topic has the most votes by X time or something like that will be the topic that we discuss during the meeting. Or we also have some kind of like more real-time kinds of variations of agendas where people can vote on topics throughout the event, and people basically using their respect, their reputation in the communities to upvote topics and propose topics. And we're working to further gamify this too, where like, you can maybe even earn respect by voting on topics and by making topics that people like and stuff like that. But right now we have a pretty simple implementation, which is on Snapshot, where people can just vote with their tokens and to choose topics. And those have been the 2 main games we played, because that gives us like both the Respect game with predictability and dependability and simplicity, and then afterwards it gives us that forum where we can discuss whatever is most important to the community, and then we use these to basically decide as a community what to do next strategically. And it's just been, our community has been relatively small, and we've been mostly focused on building the tools and all these things, so we haven't had the chance to like actively experiment in these communities with other games. We have done some, like on some celebrations for like our 1-year anniversary, we did like a Fractal DJ game where we each shared music and then we ranked each other's music, like just for fun. People share like a YouTube video, or some people play guitar or sung, and then we ranked that. And we played some other ones. We did like a retro pitches thing where like people gave pitches on what they did for the past several months or past year, and then people would like vote with their respect tokens on that. So we've experimented some other games, but those have been kind of more early experiments. And then also within my family, I've also played a lot of games like just like where we have fun with it, and we do like what were you most proud of over the past week or something like that. And then one of the communities we're onboarding, they're playing the very Respect game 4 times a week, and the founder of this community, or the organizer, is like he's been thinking about the Respect game for the past 4 years, because he's been in it for the whole time. And so he's thinking about implementing it 4 different games with a different game type each day, where like there'd be 4 different days, and one day it'd be like, what do you do to contribute to the community? One day it'd be like, what do you do to contribute to yourself or your business? Another day it's like, teach something to the community, and each time they would play these different games. So I think there's a very like wide design space for how people can design these games, and I can imagine like, you know, thousands of games or millions of games being played, like where you can just like go and like maybe a community plays a bunch of different games each week or each day, and you can pick whatever ones you like if it's a big enough community. Or maybe there's even like public, like a meetup.com thing where you can just go like join a game and join some different community and see what they're doing. And so I suppose V DAO, if you're interested in exploring different implementations or different games you could play, or perhaps with you know, your local business organization, whatever it is, like I'd recommend starting simple, just so that everyone understands it, and getting like an established rhythm, because that provides a lot of benefits. And then but also maybe if you have some compelling vision and you think that you can get the community like, you know, aligned with it and play different games, then do that, because I think there's a huge amount of potential in these different games. And it's just a matter of, you know, figuring out the right time to do it and the right way to introduce them, the right balance of games. And we know that this consistent, simple game works well, and then are excited to explore like all these different games. Like Agendas works well too, and then we're excited to explore these different games that could be added to it and different game prompts for the spec game, as well as over time. I would love to build an app where people can like pick a bunch of like preset games and stuff like that too. So over time, building the software that makes it easier for people to experiment with different games too would be another thing that we're working on as well.
All right, can I throw out one more thing, and then unfortunately I got to run, but this is my mic drop. So the V DAO Victory Garden, V Garden game for backyard gardens, where we play off of the World War II Victory Garden approach of people becoming resourceful for themselves and growing things and taking care of things at home. And the game is people are, you know, instead of, you know, reputation is how nice is your garden, whatever those metrics are. But that sounds like something people are already playing freaking Farmville. So there it is. That's all I got.
I love that. I think that'd be fascinating. That's quite similar to one of the communities that we're working with, like where people share what they did to grow their own business. And I participated in a community too that did this with their spec game too. That was really interesting. It's called Aquattack. We have an article about it and some videos if you're interested in seeing how like it went. But yeah, basically like having that where people already want to share what they've already contributed, not specifically to the community cause, but it is a community cause because it's about regeneration. But it's also in their own personal context about what they did, and like people would love. Like I don't know if that's a real image that you have in your background, but like if I were you were, I would love to show that off to people and show like, look at what I built for my area and stuff. And I imagine a lot of people would be interested in sharing that and then earning respect and stuff like that. So that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, well, one of the challenges we have is that in person is so important, and this is a little bit more of an in-person thing, but I think to really grow the V DAO community, we have to kind of focus digitally as well. So we have to think about like what's the async approach to it in order to do that. And then we stimulate in person as well, synchronously. But asynchronously, at least you can have people actually contributing to their community, but their community is maybe their local community there physically. It's just being represented within the digital community in the game.
Yep, absolutely. I agree. And we did recently get, I don't know if somebody's saying something, but we did recently get our mobile app working, like so people can play like quite easily in person. We went to GFL, which was a general forum on Ethereum localism in East Denver, and we played with a bunch of like amazing people there, and it was super fun playing in person. So yeah, you could use it for both in person and these online calls too. Well, thanks, Joshua. I really appreciate all the thoughts. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Definitely. Thanks as always, Ben, for the great session.
Yeah, glad you
If
can
it's a
make it,
game,
Josh.
then there's. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Eric.
If it's a game, then there's always going to be cheaters, right? People can claim things they actually haven't done, or show like fake AI generated platforms or something. Have you ever thought about like how to avoid all the cheating in this stuff?
Yeah, I thought about that a lot, and that's been a common topic of discussion. Is people, you know, a lot of times people share this, and like a lot of people in the blockchain industry, like they're naturally and rightly skeptical about how a game can be subverted, and game theory and so forth. And that's something that's been like deeply ingrained in kind of my thinking and a bunch of the members of the community and people who we interact with in blockchain space. So yeah, so, and this will certainly be something that we need to consider as we go forward, because I expect that pretty soon there's going to be AIs which can be on a video call and look like a real person. Like that already exists to an extent right now, but that'll exist to a much larger extent in the further future. And it'll become difficult to tell who's a person and who's trying to game it and who's not. And even now, people could go to an event and say I did all this stuff and be lying about it just to get respect. And there's also, some people who play the game advocate that say, oh, you shouldn't be able to vote for yourself or something like that. Some people think that you should be able to vote for yourself, and we usually play where you can. Yeah, so I suppose like the simple answer that we have right now is that like what we've done so far, we haven't really had that issue too much. We've been playing where it's soulbound respect tokens, and that's one of the benefits of doing it with soulbound respect tokens is instead of like having it distribute money in the beginning, where there's not like crazy huge financial incentives where people are trying to game it just to earn money, and people are there because they want to be there basically, and because they like the community and they like what we're building and they want to contribute to it in a positive manner. So maybe people have exaggerated what they've done sometimes because they want to get more respect, but we haven't had like people just trying to outright game in and try to like lie to the community, especially like our events, like they're on video and nobody wants to like, and we do this like every week. And so people get to know, like that's another kind of core like protection against it too, against cheating, is that like, it's not like one like grant system where it's like, say if there's a bunch of funding or a bunch of respect or something like that, that's like a one-time thing where it's like, whoever wins this time will win forever. It's like it happens every week, usually in most contexts. So it's like if you game it or try to cheat one week, then it's like, okay, maybe you can earn a bit more respect than you deserve that week. But then are you really going to be able to do that every week? And you're going to be able to join the community events every week and like kind of like lie to people without people like kind of getting it? And it's like if the community really cares and has people dedicated, then outside of that respect game, people might be like, hey, that guy's come to the event for like a couple weeks or a couple months now, and like I don't actually know if that guy's doing it like right, and like that, like they might just get a bad reputation basically if they try to cheat. And because of that natural kind of community engagement and like repeated process where there's just like there's some awards and some respect each week, but it's not like a huge amount compared to what you can earn over say a year of constant participation. It provides a natural incentive that people will want to like contribute more positively and not want to get caught cheating, because overall they'll be able to earn more respect and potentially more money or whatever it may be that the community is distributing by being a dependable community member who's actually assessing what they did properly and evaluating properly and contributing and contributing to the community like with good intentions and basically not overstating what they did. That's been how it's been mostly so far, and the fact that we've done it on video has reinforced that too. And so we've never really had an issue with that. Sometimes people like to vote for themselves and stuff, but that's also okay within our game rules and stuff. And then over time, it's for sure something, especially as AI comes more online and as we expect that more and more resources will be allocated via respect games or via governance processes that are like formed with the respect game as foundation. As more DAOs are formed in this way that are distributing more resources, then there'll need to be more protections that are put into place. Like for example, like one of the things that we're thinking about doing in our upcoming season is having it where like actually we're not really planning to do this in the upcoming season. We're planning to implement like a community agreement in the upcoming season. But in future seasons, we could have it where maybe only certain people are able to join the events. Maybe there's like an application process to be able to join and play the respect game. Or maybe there's like some membership or something like that, like Josh was talking about. If people are paying for a membership, or if they have to apply and it's like a selective process, but who can join, then the community can use this governance process to determine, okay, well, is this person really fit for joining the group? Do we think that they'll be an honest contributor and contribute in a good way? And if not, then the community can decide, similar to how a company can decide or a community can decide, okay, well, that person is not actually going to be a good fit for the community. They're maybe going to lie or cheat or whatever. So yeah, over time, there'll have to be more defenses. And I see Rosemary, I don't know, Rosemary, if you want to unmute or anything, but she's been saying that Also, as a person gets ranked by their peers, so evaluation acts as a natural defense mechanism against bad actors. Yeah, people might get lower respect scores than, and in combo with randomized breakout rooms and a culture where putting on cameras both can help that too. Yeah. Hope that answered your question.
Yeah, totally. So it's a bit of a natural process right now, and I expect the tools to get better anyway in the future to avoid the AIs and all of the problems. Like on-chain activity is gonna become the new carry on CV, for everyone. So it's not necessarily a problem. Yeah.
Yep, but for sure, something that we need to be planning for and considering for the future, though. Especially, I was just worried, like designing these for the long term to be resilient. So I appreciate the question and the insights there very much.
Well, it looks like we're coming to the top of the hour right now. I just want to say thank you, Dan. This has been super helpful, super insightful. Again, really appreciate you taking the time. And then, of course, Eric and Josh and others that joined, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be here and participating in this P2P session with Dan and Rosemary. But yeah, like I said, I'd be very interested in having you come back for another future session where we actually get to play the respect game. Yeah, very excited.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much, Ben. And thanks so much, Eric and Rosemary and Joshua and everybody for listening and participate in the discussion and coming with all the great thoughts and great questions. I've really, really greatly appreciate it. And I love to see the enthusiasm and interest and sparking ideas about how it could potentially be helpful for V DAO and other communities. And so I greatly appreciate you inviting me once again. And I would love to join back in the future for like to play the game basically. And also happy to keep in touch too. So if you have questions, then feel free to reach out. You know where to find me. And I'm looking forward to future collaborations, and I'm very much looking forward to getting more involved with the V DAO community too. So I'm really excited about it and really appreciate it, and looking forward to the next steps and seeing however me and my team can help you. I'd love to explore that as well.
Amazing. Well, until next time, everybody